This is the CreaseCast. Here's your host, Lach in the Crease.
It's been 84 years, but the Vancouver Canucks have finally made the playoffs. Welcome to the very first official playoff episode of the CreaseCast. This is a monumental episode for multiple reasons. Number one being the obvious, which is the fact that the Vancouver Canucks last we were here, they were down 1-0 to Minnesota, having played one of the worst hockey games I've ever seen. Just a tough. It was just a rough go of things. I'm trying to think, when did we record last? I'm realizing right at this minute that I don't actually remember the last time we recorded an episode. It was because it was right after game one. I was gonna do episodes after games 2 and 3, but it looked like but then things kind of turned the other way. Where were we going with this? Oh yeah, the Canucks won. They won 3 in a row. They won 3 games in a row over the Minnesota Wild. Win the series off a Chris Tanev overtime winner, and they move on to the playoffs. And as of the official first round of the playoffs, having passed through the qualifier, and as we found out earlier today, thanks to a 2-1 win for the Dallas Stars in a shootout, the Vancouver Canucks will play the St. Louis Blues. The defending Stanley Cup champion St. Louis Blues in the first official round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. No pressure at all. So that's one of the reasons why we're getting excited about everything going on today, obviously. But less importantly, very much less importantly, but exciting for me and exciting for this show. You might not be able to tell this depending on what platform you're listening on today, but this is the first official episode of the CreaseCast that we're doing I'm doing on video. This is hi if you're looking at the camera. Hello. This is I'm doing this on YouTube. This is you might be watching this on YouTube today. This is something I've been really wanting to add to the show for a long time. It's taken me a while to kind of I've been doing testing on whether or not, for example, I'm recording this through Zoom, whether or not this was actually a viable way to do this, because my technology is old. A lot of it's old and it's not great. I've been recording video when I've done interviews with guests and stuff that have come on the CreaseCast before. So all of that audio, never published the video, but the audio files themselves were what I used to put those episodes up. So any guest appearances you've heard in the last 3-4 months since the pandemic started, all through Zoom. And once I got comfortable with the tech and everything, I was and it was clear that my computer could run it properly, I was well, I don't see what's stopping me from doing the show on video and finally bringing it over to YouTube, which is something that I'd wanted to do from day one. That was something I'd wanted to add for this show for a very long time. Hopefully in the future, I can do stuff like live episodes and other things as well, because frankly, I don't do any editing in these episodes. It's not like I couldn't just essentially let it roll on YouTube for as a live show. It would be exactly the same thing, minus the awkward attempts to start the episode that I always get when I'm doing it not live. But yeah, this is the future of the show for the most part, is going to be doing more guest appearances, doing more stuff, and I feel and in particular doing video episodes. So if you're not already watching this on YouTube, there's a link in the description of this episode for you to go find the channel, the CreaseCast channel. Click subscribe. And I know normally people do this at the end, but I'm just, because it's the first time, why not, right? Why not start it with the beginning? I'm not going to do this every time. The episode link, the link to this episode and the show and the channel will be in the description of the episode, no matter where you're listening. Go check it out. Go hit subscribe. And I don't know, if things go well, if we get a lot of good subscribers and stuff, I might try and add some more stuff. I've always really liked YouTube as a platform. I would love to do more stuff with it. And as I get better technology and I'm able to afford to do more things and be able to purchase better tech and everything, I want to do more stuff with it and be able to add way more video elements and cooler stuff to the show, like a soundboard, an actual like audio board would be nice. That's something I'm looking at doing. Enough of that though. Now that we got the announcement out of the way, that's all done. Let's get to the really good stuff, which is the fact that the Canucks are moving on. Who could have seen this coming? I mean, it's literally it's like the Paul Rudd video where it's like, hey, look at us. Who would have thought? Not me. I'm pretty sure I've used that joke 1,000 times, but it works on so many levels. Honestly, like, I didn't have high hopes after game one. Like, not gonna lie. I believed in this group that they could get it done if they put their minds to it, but I didn't think, just looking from how badly, like, that was the worst, like, game one was the worst Canucks game of the season, in my opinion. And there was long periods of time where you know, in that game, it just looked like, oh, this is what the series is going to be. This team's not ready. They need some more time. This is a mess. But at the same time, there was kind of that thought process of, okay, they can't do any worse than this. So what? And they lost 3-0 with one of those, I believe, was an empty netter. So what are they going to be able to do when they turn it on and when they're actually playing at their best? And they came out with 3 great efforts, particularly the last game being one of the best games I've ever seen from this group. And it was amazing and it was awesome. Just going back to some of the as I try and go back to some of the games here, the results, like, I mean, the 4-3 win, they had the 4-3 win in game 2, which was more or less a 4-1, like a really statement 4-1 win up until the final 2 minutes and Kevin Fiala just being Kevin Fiala. There was the whole Pettersson like punching, in quotations, Ryan Hartman, which was actually just a soft tap, and Ryan Hartman decided to try and flop for a penalty and injured himself, which is beyond funny and deserving. It was too funny. And like, there were multiple moments in this series where different wild players tried to pull shenanigans to make Elias Pettersson look like some sort of goon, which was funny on immediately, because of the fact that we're talking about a player who has on multiple occasions called penalties on himself. He's tripped somebody and then put his hand up to signal to get the ref like, I did it. I tripped him. I'm not going to even like fight this. He's not that guy. He's just not that kind of player. So the fact that the Wild were trying to pull these crazy like bullshit moves where they're trying to like make this argument that, oh, he's a super dirty player, and then these players are coming out injured because they were like flopping around. It's karma. There was some real karma going in the Canucks' favor in this series, which is amazing and weird. You know, it really went from the Canucks went and put on a great performance in those last 3 games, and from different people. And it was, yes, there was the obvious, which was Quinn Hughes was amazing. Like, this is a kid, like, more or less, he comes into this series, he's not a rookie anymore. He didn't come into this series as a rookie because of how long they waited. Like, this is longer than a regular off season is. Quinn Hughes might as well have come into this series as a second-year player. That's what he played like. He led the team in points, with 6, which is insanity. He was amazing, and just the way he moved the puck. He made, I think, one mistake the entire series. It ended up in the back of the Canucks net, and that's literally what happens with Quinn Hughes, is that he so rarely makes mistakes that when he does, that's usually the one that ends up costing them, because nobody expects him to ever make a mistake because he's just that good. Like the way, like, Jacob Markstrom had a shutout in game 4, and he was phenomenal. He was on the entire night. He was dialed in. And there were like those first 3 games of the series, he was just dialed in and playing his best. Even in the game, like in the game against the first game that they lost, Markstrom was one of the few players who really showed up and looked like he was there to win. Like, and you know, things went bad for him in game 4, and we'll get to game 4 because of how great it was in a second. But for now, we're just going to focus on the first couple games because it was really good. They played so well. Those games 2 and 3, then I was very critical of Antoine Roussel in game 1, I think, especially because he took some bad penalties and he just didn't look like himself. He really stepped it up and scored important goals in the next few games. And and that's what I want to see. I've always said this when it comes to enforcers and agitator guys. I don't care what they do on the ice, provided that they're contributing offensively. I don't want to see guys who are just there to fight or be annoying, just wasting a roster spot if they're not going to score or not put the puck in the net and not be helpful in the offensive zone. Antoine Roussel did it. He was that guy. He was exactly that helpful. He didn't, and he really, he made me eat crow on that, which is fantastic. And I'm thrilled about it. And that's all I want with these kinds of players. And with him, he looked good, and he was really he was motivating the team. He was really getting up there and motivating the players and everything. And that was huge. And that was great to see from him. Who else is there? Tanner Pearson redemption arc as well. There were a lot of guys who really, really sucked in the first game that ended up having getting great redemption later. Tanner Pearson had 2 goals in the series after taking a couple really bad penalties in the first game. Didn't take a single penalty for the rest of the series. Had 2 goals, had 3 points. One of those goals came in the final game, which was the Canucks' first goal to tie it, and the bench just erupted. I think at that moment, and as well as nearing the end of game 3, the Canucks were alive, the bench specifically. And that's something I really want to talk about here, is that there is something to be said for the bench just having fun and having a damn good time. And you know what? They were down, they let in the first goal that game. They let in the first goal of game 4. A little bit nervous, and it's oh my God, I was so nervous. I'm oh God, please, 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 especially because so many teams, obviously there were 6 other games where teams were on the ropes. And aside from the one Toronto Columbus game, which we'll get to later in this episode, because I'm recording right as they're about to drop the puck for the final game of that series, everyone got eliminated. Every other team except for Toronto that was on the ropes left. They were done. And with the Canucks, it was oh my God, what if they're the only team that can't? What if they're one of the only teams that can't seal it and can't finish it off? All the pressure's on them going into that 5th game. They give up the first goal. It's nervous. It's nerve-wracking time. But then Tanner Pearson scores that first goal, and number one, it was a great goal because I would say he noticed Alex Stalock standing out, and Daniel Wagner, my friend of the show, from Pasatopoulos. He noted that Stalock was out of position. And you go back and look at the tape, and what Alex Stalock did is he squared up to Tanner Pearson. That's if you're not a goaltender, if you're not a goaltender, you don't know much about goaltending. Essentially, one of the things they very early on they tell you is, as a goaltender, you never square your body up to the player themselves. You always square up to the puck, which sounds obvious in your head, but it's actually a really tough thing to work out of, because because in your idea, dead center to you as the person in net is the player and the person skating at you. It's not the stick. It's not the stick, and it's not the blade holding on to the puck, which in reality is what you need to be center to. And most of the time it's away from their body. It's next to them. And even that small amount of difference in where you're positioned can leave a huge gap open. Tanner Pearson noticed more or less that he's coming up the wing, and Stalock is centered up to him, and there's room on that far side of the net to shoot the puck. And there's lots of open net on that side. He puts it there, and that's not his angle either. That's a reach around shot for him, because I believe he's a lefty. I believe he's a lefty shooter like I am. I got to double check on that, but I don't remember it being, I remember it being kind of a weird wrap. He had to kind of wrap it back. Yeah, he is right shooter. Yeah, he shoots the same way I do. So that's the far shot for him. That's a far shot for him as well, just because he's not because he's a lefty shooter. It's already the far side of the net for him as well in his stick. That's a hard shot to make. He noticed it and he got it and he nailed it, and the bench erupted. And when that happened, and they showed the footage of that, and when I saw the video of all the Canucks like freaking out on the bench over what is essentially a tying goal in a 1-1 goal or in the first period, that to me really calmed me down, and it really signaled to me they got this. I think they've got this, because I don't know, because you know what? I don't notice. It's hard to notice on what's going on the bench in a game when there's 18,000 people being loud and distracting at all times, whether you're it's on TV or you're there at the game. It's hard to know what the language and the body language and the how the players are feeling unless you're like right next to them in those cases. In this particular case, there's no one in the building. It's up to those teams to get to motivate themselves. There's no extra motivation here. They've got to do it all themselves. And the fact that the bench was doing that and having a good time, and the Wild bench did not seem to be having a good time at all during those last few games. They looked miserable. That really plays into it. Being skilled is important. Having confidence, not being too overconfident, is good. But having fun, that's important. That really does make a difference. I don't think it's made enough of people make enough of an effort to point out that when you're having a good time and you're enjoying what you do, it's so much easier to find success in hockey, in sports. Like, even just in regular jobs, it's just that idea of like, how much more motivated are you if you love your job and you're having the greatest time doing what you're doing? How much more motivated are you to do the best you can, right? Whether like, even if say that job pays way less than say a different job, then if there's another job out there that pays way better and you hate it, and it makes you so bored and you can't stand it, you're gonna be more motivated by that first job just because it's fun and you have a good time doing it. And the fact that the Canucks were out there having a good time, enjoying themselves, really seemed to be like, this is us, this is our series, we're gonna win this, and getting really up, motivating everybody and firing themselves up. That's great. And that, for me anyway, I think that bodes really well for them going forward. If I see more of that from them, there's a lot you can do off of having fun and enjoying yourselves and playing loose and having a good time. And they did it in those last few games. That first game they didn't. They were timid and scared and they looked overwhelmed. The last 3 games was a complete turnaround for them. And even when they dropped down, it was, I believe it was 3-1. It was 3-1 at one point in the second period. They claw their way back into it. They claw their way back into this game after, I believe the second goal was the Eric Stahl goal that beat Markstrom over the head, just barely beat him past that post, which is a hard shot to make by any stretch, but it really can throw you off because you think you have the whole net sealed, and all of a sudden puck just whizzes right next to you and in. And it really does. It really seemed to throw Markstrom off. Markstrom's game 4 was not good, like simply put. And right down to when you get down to the 3-1, who's looking a little bit better, but he looked stiff. He was stiff throughout that first period, standing up a lot taller, I think, when I noticed. And then you get into and the Canucks clawing their way just back into this game. They worked so hard. They got a couple power plays, which no matter how many power plays they got, it seemed to be a struggle for them to get back into and to find their way back a couple times during that series. And they did. And in that second period, Brent, you got the first goal. You got the Brandon Sutter goal you got the Brandon Sutter goal where he just gets in front, gets the shot and makes no mistake. That's important for that. And that's huge. Getting those contributions from guys, getting contributions from guys like Brandon Sutter. That's huge. And then Quinn Hughes with a tease one up on the power play. And it's a beautiful shot. And ties it. All of a sudden, this is like, it's alive, and you're like, oh, they've got, like, you're like, they've got this. This is their night. Then the fourth, then the Wild take the lead on the Nico Sturm goal, and that goal was awful and it sucked the life out of everybody on Twitter. I know that much, including myself. Nico Sturm, who's in like I think his second NHL game, it was not a good shot at all. He's along the boards. He's along the left side boards. He takes the shot. Markstrom decides to try and squeeze up against the post again. It gets behind his body and in, and that was a clear mistake. And I said it on Twitter at the time as well, which was that that stall goal seemed to really throw him off, because on that sort of play, you're not supposed to be lined up like that. I don't believe Markstrom's supposed to be lined up like that along the post. He's supposed to be still out in front, standing up, putting his chest out in front of the shot. Instead, he decided to try and squeeze up against the post, because I think the stall goal really threw him off and scared him into kind of being a little bit more worried about that post. And it ended up costing him again, because he should have just taken the shot straight on into his body. Take the puck into his chest instead, or into the pads. And all of a sudden, you're just like, oh my God, Markstrom's playing the worst game. This is the worst game we've seen from Jacob Markstrom all season. And one of the things that really gained traction on Twitter that I said at the time, one of my few tweets that ever like goes semi-viral was Jacob Markstrom had stolen far too many games to count over the last 2 years. Over the last 2 years, he's been the team MVP over the last 2 years, and routinely stolen a number of games for this group when they couldn't get when they could get barely anything going. So many times there were games where the Canucks were on their heels the entire night, but still managed to edge out 2 points because Jacob Markstrom stood on his damn head. And I said that it was a character moment for the Canucks to see, all right, your goaltender, this is a time where your goaltender needs you to step up for him. After all the games and all the nights that he has saved you guys, you need to return the favor tonight. You need to find a way to return the favor for him and win him and steal one for him. And they did it. Bo Horvat gets right out in front. Nobody notices him. Again, Canucks bench is having it. As soon as they tied that game, I'm like, this is it. It really is like, they got this, everybody, don't worry. And then, and going to overtime, you're still nervous, but I was still nervous, but I'm like, okay, I think they're going to be okay. I think they're going to be okay in this one. And 11 seconds in, Chris Tanev puts one on goal and puts a kind of a weak shot right on the goal. Alex Lach is totally screened, doesn't see it, hits the back of the net. Mayhem. And Chris Tanev, of all the people who could have scored that goal, Chris Tanev, guy who's never scored a playoff goal in his life, has been through all the hardest stuff this team has had to deal with in the last decade, because he was only kind of part of the 2011 team. He wasn't even a full-time guy yet at that point. Talk about a moment for him, and the whole team just lost it. And they pour off the bench, congratulate him. They shake hands after, and then after Tanev's done his thing, done his interviews and everything, including giving you could tell Chris Tanev, by the way, is not used to the interviews and everything. What was his quote? And somebody asked him how they're going to celebrate. He's like, I'm sure we'll find a few ways to celebrate after we take our stuff off. And everyone is like, I'm sorry, what? What are you implying there? I think that just goes to show you that Chris Tanev is not a guy who does a lot of interviews, and that's okay. Tanny, buddy, you're good. You're good. You don't have to worry about that. And then there's the video, the Canucks post after, where the whole team just mobs him, including some of the coaches. I'm pretty sure I saw Nolan Baumgartner getting in there. Quinn Hughes, I think it was broadcast co-host Mallory was pointing out, this is the happiest I've ever seen Quinn Hughes. And it's like, yeah, he's having the time of his life. And Quinn Hughes always looks so awkward, and looks like he's just everything is very shy. He was pumped. Everybody in there was absolutely pumped, and they all mobbed Tanev again. It was beautiful. It almost made me cry, because it's this team has worked so hard for this. those players have worked really hard for this. And including some of these guys who have been like Edler and Tanev, who have been there through the worst years of this franchise in some ways, right? Like just some awful seasons. And part of some awful like like not them specifically, but they had to like Edler and Tanev, they sat through, what was it? They played through the 2012 President's Trophy year where they got bounced by the Kings in the first round. The sweep at the hands of the Sharks in 2013, and the whole Corey Schneider Luongo debacle where people kept thinking, no, go to Corey Schneider, who's been on the interviews. Corey, I love you, buddy, but sorry, Lou, gotta go with Lou. Still gotta go with Lou at all times. Then, you know, like the sweep, and the Tortorella year where everything's just a gigantic mess from beginning to end. Everybody getting fired, Jim Benning coming in, Willie Desjardins coming in, getting them to the playoffs one year once and then sucking for 3 years after. Like the team just miserable for years. And finally they get Pettersson and they get Besser and they get all these, and they start stockpiling a couple good guys. They bring in a few things. Jacob Markstrom turns into an MVP, a team MVP. And for those guys and for all the players who've been here through that time, it's like kind of some redemption for them that they finally get to see this team. Not like, yeah, maybe this postseason, maybe this series doesn't technically count as a playoff series, but it's a postseason. It is. It's a playoff series. Whether or not the NHL officially considers it that, it was a damn playoff series, a damn best of 5 playoff series, and the Canucks won. They took them one try and they finally got back to it. And this is revenge for a lot of things. Like this is revenge for the Canucks from 2003 when they choked a 3-1 series lead to the Wild and lost in the West Coast Express era. This is redemption for Ryan Hartman being garbage. Sorry, like dude tried to murder Elias Pettersson in Game 3, where thank God for Petey. And thank God Petey's a smart guy who literally, as he's about to, you know, come close to a career-ending hit, taking a career-ending hit from this guy, he tucks his head into his shoulders, so that way his neck doesn't take any damage. Like that's a smart heads-up play, thank God, because otherwise, like, oof, I don't even want to think. I'm not even going to talk about that, like what could have happened there. But like that was Ryan Hartman essentially trying to, you know, like murder a guy, and JT Miller stood up and just went and started pummeling him, which was thank God. I will say, especially on Twitter, like, you know, as somebody who's not like an established writer or has no full-time job, I'm always like a little bit weary about posting anything controversial or saying anything particularly like rude or like shit talking a player essentially on Twitter, because I'm like, I don't know, I don't have the guts to do it. I should. Literally every other writer does. They don't care. I shouldn't care either. But that was like the one time in like the last few years where I really was like, okay, you know what? No. And I posted a picture of a dumpster and said, hey, look, it's Ryan Hartman and its natural habitat. Because yeah, damn right. Like, go to hell, dude. Like you literally just tried to kill somebody, like try to kill a Canuck basically. And yeah, no, that won't stand. Like that was a garbage, dirty play by him. By Ryan Hartman, and I have no respect for that stuff. It's like, no, you deserve the worst right now. And there was Alex Stalock also just kind of being a bit of a shit in the net. Like he played a damn good series. And I can't help but love any small goaltender, but then he was making it very difficult when he's doing stuff like pushing the stick away from Pettersson in the fourth game, and the karma receipts are just racking up for him. The dive on the Roussel thing. Roussel should have stopped up earlier, but still, that was a clear embellishment from Stalock. His stick just flies out of his hands. I'm like, no, sorry, no goaltender falls like that. Like I've been hit before. I don't fall. That's not how I fall when I've actually been body checked. Like that's a guy trying to draw a penalty, and it was a load of crap. And he was like trash talking and everything, and the Canucks got the best of him. Thank God. I didn't know the Wild were so dirty. I mean, good for them. They're a boring team. So thank God that it looks like they've grown a little bit of interest. They've done at least something semi-interesting. But they'll still forever be the most boring team in the NHL. Bye-bye. It was overall just an amazing series. I'm not gonna lie. I leapt for joy when on the couch when Tanev scored. It was amazing. It was a great series. They did, and it was fun. It was enjoyable, and whatever. And we'll preview the Blues in a second, but it was fantastic. Now, before we get into the Blue stuff, pointing out a few things like the good and bad, because that's not to say we don't have notes here. There were some good stuff. Obviously, it talked about Quinn Hughes, who was amazing. Got to give some, and the bench, and as well as the bench being good. Got to give some props to two guys in particular who came in and stepped up. Three, actually, we'll say three. Louis Eriksson, number one. Yeah, he can't. Yeah, yes. Say what you want about his contract. Say what you want about his points. Yes, there was multiple times where it looked like he might have a chance at a goal, and then his stick would break, and he just had the worst luck. His stick would break on the 2-on-1. Louis Eriksson was great, and he made that second line better with him on there. Like, they looked better and more confident, and they were playing with real confidence there. And Louis good in his own end, which is great. Like, he was really working for it in the defensive zone, which was phenomenal to see. And I don't think you can take him out now. Like, you're gonna have to find somebody else. Like, he looked good there. What do you do if Tyler Toffoli is able to come back? And poor Tyler Toffoli. We'll get to him in a second. But Louis was great. Like, he fit that role well. He did his job well. He's not asked to score a lot of goals. He just needs to be good in his own end and defensive and not be a liability on the ice. And he wasn't. He was good. And he made some chances happen at the other end too, which was fantastic. Jake Virtanen as well really stepped up after having, horrible training camp. Really was like, okay, we're done here. Like, it really did feel like we'd seen the last of Jake Virtanen as a Canuck at that point. It felt like he was gone. Who knows now? Like, he was decent. I don't think did he have any points? He might have had 1 point here or there. No, he had no points. He had a fight. He had a fight in the first game, which I didn't love because I'm not a huge fan of the let's fight to set the tone thing from the Canucks standpoint, because they're not a team that's that physical. That's just not their skill. That's not what they're good at. And I'm kind of like, I don't love that you're throwing yourself in the box for 5 minutes to set the tone, because this isn't the tone that's best for you and for this team. But hey, he did fine. He wasn't a huge liability on the ice. Which is sometimes all you can ask for. That's like the biggest thing the Canucks have had problems with this season, is there are guys who every time they step on the ice, Tyler Myers, he had a rough go. Like, you're just like, oh God, this is gonna end up in the back of the net. Like, you're just like, anytime the puck goes in, you're like, let me guess who's out there. And it's usually three. And it's usually like, out of the 5 or 6 guys you might have in your mind, at least 2 or 3 are out there. Like, it seems like every time. And, hey, Virtanen was better in his own. He was a little bit better in his own end. He had a great back check and bailed out Tyler. I think it was Tyler Myers. He just bailed out, getting back, like racing back for a puck and back checking, which is the whole thing, is that Virtanen's always had trouble getting himself to back check. He was the only guy back. It was going to be a breakaway. And yes, that is inherently, and like, I know some people on Twitter were like, why are we applauding him for doing his job? And, knowing that he's the only guy back, because that's the thing that he struggled with, is understanding that urgency and bolting back and knowing that, okay, I'm the defensive responsibility here. I need to step up and get this done and save a goal. And he did. He saved an opportune scoring chance. He he stopped it. He stopped it dead in his tracks because he back checked. And yeah, is that a small thing? Yes, 100%. Is that I'm not saying he's a defensive stalwart now, but that's a step in the right direction. That's him learning, and that's him showing that he can actually do what he needs to do to stay in the lineup, which is sometimes all you can ask for. Zach McEwen played 2 games. I would have liked to have seen him in more, but I think he was great. I mean, the first game he played in, which was game 3, he drew I think he drew at least 1 penalty. And I've said it, I'll say it 1,000 times. Zach McEwen is perfect for playoff hockey. He's big, he's tough, he can score, and he clearly doesn't get too agitated, which is great. Like he was really like pissing off some of the Wild players and getting them to take bad penalties, but was staying disciplined in his own right. He was staying disciplined, which is what it takes, because they almost never see that first whack or that first like little chop at the guy. They always see the second. They always see the revenge like hit or something, or slash, So he did a good job. He stayed very disciplined and he did well. I want to keep seeing. You got to keep him in the lineup. He's perfect for it. And Olli Juolevi, got to finish off with Olli Juolevi and the good stuff here, because he had 1 game, didn't see a lot of ice time, only played 6 minutes, but was only out for what was it? I think he was only out for was it even 1 shot against? I don't think he was out for. I think somebody on Twitter said he was only out. He wasn't even out for a single shot at 5 on, like a single shot against at 5-on-5, and he didn't like. Hey, that's good. That's really good. Like those are those little things that matter. And like the way that he was obviously wasn't getting like the toughest matchups of the evening by any stretch. Oh, and we got a Columbus goal as I record this. That's is that 1-0 for them? Yeah, it is. Juolevi looked good. I was a little bit worried that maybe this was going to be one of those scenarios where the rookie defenseman playing in his first NHL game accidentally like coughs up the puck at a really bad time. Nope, nothing. There was only 6 minutes for him to make an error, but he didn't make one, and that's great, and that's phenomenal. And as we go on, if he gets more ice time, it might keep going up and up and up, and maybe those mistakes will stay minimal and low or 0, which would be great, and exactly what this team needs on its blue line. And bottom line, did great in his first game. Did nothing wrong. That's huge, and that's great for a rookie in a playoff game. Like, how about that? Had to take a bit of a pause for a second there. The computer overheated in the middle of while I was talking in the last recording, and just died. So, and just to once again to detail what wonderful tech and what great advanced equipment I'm working with here. It's not a hodgepodge of stuff that can't do most of the things I need it to. But on the bright side, I was able to fix the camera brightness, so now it's not weird and flickering all the time. It's much better now. Okay, where were we? The bad stuff that happened. There were some notes. The Canucks weren't perfect. Specifically, one guy, Tyler Miners, as his new name is, Tyler Myers, 9 minor penalties in 4 games. Like, okay, dude, you're the biggest guy on the ice. You're a tree/giraffe guy. Like, okay, the refs are gonna be paying attention to you. And the fact of the matter is, because you're the tallest guy on the ice, it's up to him to not give the refs a reason to call something on him. And he kept doing it. He kept getting beat to the net and kept reaching in with a stick or a glove. And then sometimes the Wild were even just getting in his face, and he would just react instantly. And it was causing them too many problems. And frankly, it's especially annoying because, knowing Travis Green as a coach, if this had been a rookie making these kinds of mistakes, they would have been just stapled to the bench. They would have been stapled to the bench. They would have seen barely any ice time for the rest of the night. With Tyler Myers, keeps getting played. He just keeps getting a bunch of ice time. And it's kind of frustrating, it's kind of frustrating that this guy, just because he's a veteran, can make all these ridiculous mistakes that keeps, putting the Canucks on the PK and costing and putting them way more stress on the system than necessary. Doesn't get like, you know, it's not getting reined in enough. He's not getting, you know, there's no real consequences for him going out and taking a ridiculous number of penalties, like way too many penalties for a 4-game series. 9, that's unacceptable. That's got to tighten up. He's got to get better about that, because I don't know if there are necessarily better defensive options in the Canucks bubble. But there's going to be guys who aren't going to take 9 minor penalties. I can tell you that much. Tyler Toffoli had a very rough go, and Adam Gaudette as well, just because they only played game 1. They both got hurt, Tyler Toffoli got hurt very early on and then ended up having a very, very hard game against Minnesota. Appears to be a foot injury. But according to Thomas Drance of The Athletic, who is there in Edmonton right now, he is walking on a small walking boot, as opposed to one of the very large, thick ones, which means that it's maybe not too bad an injury. It's maybe not the 4 to 6 weeks that I think I heard at one point. It could be shorter. He could be back in round 2. Hopefully that's the case, because I mean, the price the Canucks paid to get him just for this specific purpose it's important, and it's important that they get that use, and that Toffoli is able to come back and prove his value to this group and play. Now, of course, Louis Eriksson has done so well on that second line with Bo Horvat that maybe Tyler Toffoli comes back on a third line deal, because I don't know if you can upset what's working. I mean, they've won 3 games this way. I don't know if you can go to a new if you can change him out. Although I will say that I think Toffoli is really good in his own end, and he's good defensively. And I think, as well as being a great contributor in the scoring department, I think if you put him back on that line with Bo Horvat and Tanner Pearson, which I think he should have been at the start of the series, they could do well. They could do very well. And then last but not least, Michael Furland had a very tough game in a bit. He is now home in Winnipeg due to an injury. It's not known officially what it is because of the NHL's COVID the COVID plan and everything of how you can't announce what kind of injuries or any illnesses or anything. But I mean, it seems likely that it's concussion related. I don't know why they would send him home, because frankly, they wouldn't. I don't think they would send him back home to his home in I believe it's Winnipeg. If it was just a shoulder injury or a knee injury or something, like just a regular like broken bone or something, they would have likely just taken him to a hospital in Edmonton and dealt with it then. But the fact that he's home makes me think that it's a concussion thing. And for a guy who's had, I think this would be his 4th concussion this year. You got to start thinking long term here if you're Michael Furland, and thinking, okay, and it might be time to call it a career, because at this point you're like, this is serious long term health. This is the 3rd time this year that he's come back, played a game, and either not made it to a second or only played part of a second because symptoms came back. And that's, I mean, if that is what it is, if it is a concussion, again, we can't say for sure. But, you know, if that's the case, he's got to start thinking long-term about his health. And frankly, you know, if you're the Canucks as well, you might have to consider being like, telling him next season, like, we're not going to play you because it's too great a risk for you. It's too great a risk for us. You should go home. Either go home or we'll send you to the AHL or something else. But like, I don't see how you can play him. I don't see how you can like keep giving him ice time and opportunities if it's gonna risk his long-term health. Like, that's the bottom line, is that this could seriously jeopardize him for the long-term future, and that's more important than any hockey game, right? So I think if you're the Canucks, you got to really seriously consider as well. If he's not going to consider it, you've got to make that decision of, maybe we can't let him play. If this is what's going to happen to him, like, maybe letting him play isn't a good idea. And I think you would be able to put him on long-term IR, no problem, if that were the case. So he wouldn't have to worry about not getting the rest of his contract. But I don't know. Hope for the best. Hopefully it's not. But got to be realistic, and hopefully it's nothing serious, and maybe we'll see him again in these playoffs. Who knows? Who knows? It could be a while. Now let's get into the Blues series. Let's get into the Canucks play the Blues, and since I stopped recording, since in the time between when I recorded part 1 and part 2, and part 2 right now, the Leafs have won. The Leafs did not win. They choked against the Blue Jackets again, 3-0 for the final there. And we'll get to the rest of the series in a second. But for now, the Canucks essentially, because the Oilers and the Predators ahead of them in the standings got upset by their qualifier opponents. The Canucks are the highest seed coming out of the qualifiers in 5th, and they play the last team in the round robin, which happens to be the Stanley Cup champion St. Louis Blues. Wow, this is going to be an interesting series, to say the least. Because this is a Canucks team that's coming in, having won 3 games in a row, playing great hockey. And then you have the St. Louis Blues, who, yes, they won the Western Conference in the regular season months ago, but they have lost every game so far. They have a record of 0 wins, 2 losses, and 1 overtime loss in the qualifiers. They lost to Dallas today, 2-1 in a shootout. And this is a team coming in cold, and according to Thomas Drance, who's there, and people there, they're not looking good, and they don't look like they want to be there, and they look like a Cup team that's sick of this and wants to go home. Now, if that's the case, that's good for the Canucks, because, hey, they'll take their place. They would love to be here. Let's keep going. But having said that, I do think the Canucks are in a good spot here. I think that this series has a good chance to swing in the Canucks' favor here. Now, obviously, on paper, the Blues are much better. That's not even a debate. The Blues are deeper, way better defense, and way better defensively. What the Canucks have going for them, again, is that they're hot right now. They've won 3 games in a row, and they're also coming in a case where they could honestly get, frankly, they could get swept, and it would still be a successful year. This would still be a successful season. Because oh no, you lost to the defending Stanley Cup champions. What a shame. It's hard to really get sad about that. It's hard to really find the problem in there, in that sentence, right? But if they keep going and they win, hey, you beat the defending Cup champions. There's no real bad scenario here for this team. They can play loose and keep playing. They're playing with house money essentially at this point. And what's more, they beat the Blues in the season series. They won 2 games, lost 1 in overtime, and the only reason they lost that overtime game was because they gave up a 3-on-0 against Jacob Markstrom, who did all he could to try and stop that. I mean, there's no 3-on-3 overtime in the playoffs, so if that's the only thing they have to worry about, the Canucks might be in a good spot here. The Blues are, to be fair, even though they've been awful, just awful in the round robin, they're loaded. You can't deny that they're loaded. Vladimir Tarasenko, Ryan O'Reilly, David Perron, Braden Shen, Jaden Schwartz, right down to even those guys on the third line, Robert Thomas, Sammy Blais, and Tyler Bozak, who could probably be a second line on a few teams. I don't see any reason, that the Blues are going to be coming in feeling at their least confident, but they're still a stacked team. And on defense, they have the Canucks completely beat. Justin Falk is a third pairing defenseman on this team, and he's a pretty damn good defenseman on, again, he would be much higher in the lineup on nearly every other team in the league. This is a group that has, if anything, gotten a little bit better since they won the Cup last year. Jordan Binnington is another year older and a lot wiser. But again, it's a toss-up here a little bit, because the Canucks are doing so well, and they just really took it to a team that is so defensively sound and structured. And the Canucks hammered them in the final 3 games and played some of their best hockey of the season. I don't see why they couldn't do this is the exact same thing to the Blues if they really put their minds to it here, especially considering they have had pretty good luck and they've played very well over the last few years against the Blues. I will say it's going to take obviously a team effort. It's going to take the fact that the Canucks are a little bit younger and a little bit faster, which is going to benefit them when it comes to trying to maybe outskate this Blues team. But it's still a battle, and it's the fact that when you have Jordan Binnington on the other side against you, he's an incredibly good goaltender. He's a great goalie, but I will say this, like, I think Markstrom when he's on is a better goaltender. And I think also the Canucks have a bit of a secret weapon when it comes to Jordan Binnington, which is the fact that Elias Pettersson lives rent-free in his head. Like ever since the Calder thing, like Binnington was making comments about how like he felt he should have won. First of all, you shouldn't have even gotten a vote, buddy. You're 25, like, and been playing pro hockey for the last 10 years. The fact that you even get a vote is a joke. You shouldn't have even been in that. Sorry. And you played half a season. You get nothing. You deserve nothing. Sorry. Like, that's my hot take, but yep. Sorry, Jordan Binnington, you in 0% deserve the Calder. Not even close. At the end of the day, he's mad about that, and he doesn't like that he didn't win. And there were a couple points where it seemed like, sometimes it seems like he's just trying to outshine the guy who beat him for a trophy. And like there was like one play that I really remember. I think it was the first time they met this season. Like I think at one point, like there was like a scramble in front of the net, and part of Binnington's strategy was to just haul down Pettersson's by the legs in front of the net. And while he was doing that, a Canuck banged the puck in because he wasn't paying attention and he was just being an ass on the ice. I mean, as if his Twitter wasn't a giveaway already. But he's still a good goaltender, but he's emotional. He's an emotional goaltender. And, if the Canucks want a better shot at him, they might just have to get a little bit in his kitchen. Like, they have to go to the front of the net, make it hard for him to see pucks. He's going to get a little bit upset. He's going to try and he might take a penalty if you're lucky. But you just got to throw him off. You got to throw him off, get him focused on the wrong things. And then you might have a better shot at throwing a couple extra pucks by him. At the end of the day, he's a structurally sound goaltender who not only rarely has an off night, he rarely has an off night and then repeats that off night in the next game. He's very good at bouncing back from tough outings. And that's something the Canucks need to be wary of, is that they gotta know that it's not just okay, we got him, the series is over thing. Nope. It's every night is a new game with Binnington. He's great at resetting. He's resetting his mindset. He's very good about that. And for the Canucks, they're going to need to focus on that. They're going to need to try and keep the puck, keep getting in front of him, making it difficult for him to read and see pucks the way they did with Alex Stalock in the last few games, and got Stalock a little bit more upset near the end there. I think the Canucks, again, if the Canucks can stay out of the box, because again, the referees are calling a lot more penalties in this return to play format. If they can stay out of the box and stay disciplined, because the Blues are very good at getting, they themselves are very good at agitating. That was part of the big thing for them last year. Is they agitated a lot of teams on their way to that cup last year. You got to stay out of the box. This is a group that you do not want to give power play time to the St. Louis Blues. But on the flip side, if you can try and get them thrown off their game, if you start getting power play opportunities, that could be a huge benefit against the Blues here. Just stay ahead of the pace. Don't try to out-hit. You're not going to win battles that way. That's not the Canucks style. And I think the Canucks have a really good shot at winning this. I know a lot of people wanted Dallas. But I will say, I think Dallas would have been a lot more difficult for the Canucks, just as past history dictates. The Canucks have had a lot of problems with the Stars in the past, just the way that they're built. There are some teams that on paper, the other teams, whether they should be light years ahead of them or not, or they're better on paper, for some reason, the way the different teams are built, they struggle. The Canucks, for example, like they've really struggled against teams like Winnipeg and Dallas, and I am missing a few. Vegas. Vegas is another one. Like, I did not want the Canucks playing Vegas in the first round. I would rather them play Colorado than Vegas. Vegas just always kills them every time they play them. Dallas is kind of the same way. Don't know what it is about the Stars. They just seem to really feast on what the Canucks bring. And with the Blues, it seems to be the other way. The Canucks seem to be a team that has great success and great luck against this group for whatever reason. And the Canucks have an opportunity here to capitalize on that. And if Markstrom is able to go back to what he was playing like before Game 4, and the Canucks keep going on the pace that keep playing with the scoring pace that they have over these last 3 games, and are able to keep finding gutsy ways to win like they did in Game 4, I think this is a Canucks series. This is their series for the taking, quite honestly. Let's give my prediction right now. Let's give the prediction right now. Canucks in 6. I think they've got this. I think this is theirs. If they don't win, like, that sucks, but they've already gotten a lot farther than I would have anticipated. But I think at the end of the day, I think they've got a really good shot at this. I think they're coming in at just the right time, and I really think they could get this done and go on a bit of a run here. As long as they don't run into Vegas. If they run into Vegas, they might be in trouble. But I think they could maybe go on a run here. Don't sleep on the Canucks. I don't sleep on them. They're not the best. They're clearly not the best team on paper, and by any stretch of the imagination, but they might get it done. They might surprise you. All right, now let's get into the other playoff series before we head out here, because there's been a lot more. It's been a lot of fun in this last week, hasn't there? Starting with the game that ended in between breaks while I was recording. Toronto loses Game 5 to the Blue Jackets 3-0 today. Toronto, it's that group is so skilled. I don't know what it is about that group that just can't finish. Like, they always underperform come playoff time. They almost didn't too, because they came back from 3-0 down in Game 4 against the Jackets in the last 5 minutes, and pulled the Boston Bruins. It was 4-1 move on another team, which must be exciting for the Leafs, right? To do that, to do that to another team for the first time ever. And then they came out and once again in an elimination game, winner take all, lay an egg. Like, they just completely laid an egg. And it's I don't know what to do with that group. Like, I don't know what I could say to say that what they need here. I mean, I'll say that, I think it was Justin Morissette tweeted earlier today about, how lots of teams like Pittsburgh and Washington and Chicago and LA ran into points where they just couldn't get over the hump. And, because they stayed patient, it eventually happened. They would eventually do it and get the right bounces, and things would just go that perfect way for them to finally win a cup. I would guess that's my best advice to Toronto. I mean, what are you going to do? I've heard some people are like, there's already the idea of maybe they need to blow it up now. I don't think you should. I don't think blowing up what you've built here based on especially a season that went on pause is a great idea. I think you really need a full season, a proper real season if you really want to go that route, which again, I don't think you should, because Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, William Nylander, John Tavares, that's a great group, and that should be winning games. It's just that defense isn't good. The defense isn't fantastic, and they've struggled to put a good blue line together. At the end of the day, all it takes is one bounce for things to change, Toronto. It's going to be a mess on Twitter for the next few days. So good luck with that. But I'm going to very much stay away from Leafs part of Twitter and Oilers part of Twitter. We'll get there in a second. But hey, Columbus, good on you. Once again, they last a whole extra round, and people who didn't last or who didn't make it into the first round include Artemi Panarin, Sergei Bobrovsky, and Matt Duchene, the three big free agents who left the Jackets. Ooh, that's gotta sting a little bit, doesn't it? That the Jackets are way lacking in depth, but they still get into the next round and farther because of Jonas Korpisalo and Elvis Merzlikins being awesome in general. Like, I like the Jackets. I like them a lot. They work really hard. They're fun. John Tortorella has really redeemed himself in Columbus. Good for them. I love how that's gone for Columbus, and I enjoy watching them play, and I'm going to enjoy them in the next round when they play. Is it Boston? I have to double check my playoffs here. It's not Boston. It's who is it? Why am I blanking on this? This is great radio. It is the don't show me. It is whatever. We'll deal with it later. Not important. What is important is that the Jackets won. Good for them. What else is there? Panthers, Islanders. Let's do that one. The Islanders just keep on keeping on. Like, that's what they do. They're not they're not flashy. They're not an entertaining team by any stretch of the imagination. They just grind out wins. That's all they do. You kind of knew this series was going to be boring the minute it got announced. Like, I just knew the Panthers were going to keep being the Panthers, and the Islanders were going to just have to be like, it basically for the Islanders, it was, okay, don't blow this. It's really just take it easy. Don't blow this, but also don't underestimate your opponent. Just go in, do your thing, get out. They did almost let Florida back in with that one win in Game 3, but the Panthers are not a well-built team. They're not a well-oiled machine at any stretch, and a lot of that could be due to poor management. And there's been a lot of talk around in Vancouver in particular, because we have a lot of interesting connections to the Panthers from over the years, which is so fascinating when you really think about it. But like we end up knowing a lot about Florida, finding out a lot about the Panthers in Vancouver, including, Patrick Johnson of the Province wrote a great article this week talking about how Dale Talon just decimated all the good work that, a more analytics approached management group had done in the years previous, during which Talon was kicked upstairs as a president of hockey ops. When Talon came back, he basically undid all the good stuff they did, and just completely destroyed that group. That team could have been so much better. And it sucks because I really like the Panthers. I like the Panthers as an organization because, they gave us Luongo, they gave us Markstrom, they've given us the Panthers are good, are a team I enjoy for whatever reason. And I hate that they're being ran so poorly. Like, who gives an 8-year contract to Mike Matheson? Like, no, he's not that. He is in no way deserving of that high a contract. Like, why are you handing that out to him? And why did you give $10 million for 8 years to Sergei Bobrovsky? What are you doing? Like, that was a bad contract the minute they signed it. And it got worse because Bobrovsky wasn't even good. Like, even if Bobrovsky had been amazing, had been just as good as usual, like, that contract is still not going to be worth it by like the halfway mark. And he ended up being awful this year. So that contract just looks atrocious in hindsight, as if it didn't already. Bottom line, the Panthers are a mess, and they really need a new management. They really need new management. I think this is the end for Dale Talon, thank God. And we will see who's next for Florida. Last in the East, because I think Carolina and the Rangers ended before we got here. Montreal, Pittsburgh. Montreal moves on. Probably, I would say the biggest shock of the weekend, I don't think that's a stretch, is the Canadiens winning that series. Kudos to the Canadiens for, a team that probably needs Alexis Lafreniere more than any other team in the qualifiers, and very easily could have just rolled over and left and gotten out in 3 games. They played hard. They played really hard, and they'd earned that victory. They were better. They were the better team. They were the better team this whole week. And the Penguins played like garbage. Like, they they were just like awful, and particularly in the final game, they had no will to win, like, and which maybe comes from the fact that, hey, they've already got their cups, and they have already got their cups in this year, and specifically in this season. Maybe this is not the year they want to be going crazy hard for anything, but it sucks because it means no Sidney Crosby, no Evgeny Malkin in the first round of the official playoffs, and the league's worse off for that. But at the end of the day, the Penguins didn't play well enough to get it. The goaltending just couldn't outduel Carey Price. I do have to offer apologies to Carey Price, because I did not think he could steal a series anymore. I did not think he had what it took to be that kind of goalie anymore. But here he is, being a damn good goalie in this stretch here. Good for Carey. Good for Carey coming out with a real statement win, with a couple statement wins here. Let's see. And let's jump over to the Western Conference. Edmonton. The Oilers. What do you do if you're the Oilers? Like, at this point, I mean, I honestly really, like, I predicted the Oilers to win that series in 5 games, but there was always a really big part of me that was like, nah, Chicago's totally gonna upset the Oilers, aren't they? Like, has to be the worst. Like, right from the beginning, I was like, oh, that's the worst draw for the Oilers possible. This is a team that has won cups, that has nothing going for it, that, like, right now has nothing to lose, I should say. And then there's the Oilers, who really need a damn series win. And it went belly up. It went belly up very quickly. They had the one game where Connor McDavid had a hat trick, and they looked very good, and it looked like, okay, they got things going here. And the Blackhawks, the bounces went their way in those last couple games, and they finished it off. They didn't back off. They didn't back down. They finished off that series. I cannot believe it. As soon as the Oilers won, I was like, okay, the Canucks have to win their series, because if Pittsburgh, Edmonton, and Toronto are all in the lottery to get Alexis Lafreniere, there's no way any other team's winning. Not happening. It's just not possible. It's not scientifically possible. Yes, it is, but you know what I mean. It's not the way. It's not the way of the world. Winnipeg, Calgary. Winnipeg. This stopped being a series when Mark Scheifele went down in that first game, and it sucks because Winnipeg, Calgary could have been a really good grudge match could have been a really, like, real fight. But those last 2 games, Calgary just blew the Jets out of the water, and it makes sense because the Jets just had nothing anymore. They got super injured in the first 2 games, completely banged up, and they were toast. Like, they were toast. Even, like, Connor Hellebuck was the only thing that could have possibly, saved them and stolen a few, gotten them through Calgary, and maybe given enough time for players to return and get healthy and come back. But he couldn't. The Flames were too much for Connor Hellebuck to handle by him, more or less by himself. Like, that Flames team has a lot of great offensive talents, and Matthew Tkachuk, Johnny Gaudreau, Sean Monahan. Like, yeah, maybe they're a little bit overrated, I think, sometimes, but they're still a great scoring team and a damn good hockey team at the end of the day. So, the second you lose Laine and Scheifele and other players, there are a lot. I think Mason Appleton was one. Like, it was kind of dead on arrival, and it sucks because that series could have been a lot better. I think we all know that could have been at the end of the day. And finally, Nashville, Arizona, which I think was a much more interesting series than I was anticipating. I was really expecting this to be the slogfest series in the West. The West, for what it's worth, the Western Conference, all those series were good. Every single one of them was interesting. The Jets-Flame series was a little anticlimactic because of the injuries, but it was still good hockey. And the Predators-Coyote series was fun and entertaining, and the goaltending was interesting. And sometimes it was good, sometimes it was great, sometimes it was subpar. The Predators are in a situation where they've got maybe a few too many cooks in the kitchen, and that could be something that they have to worry about in the future. But for now, I don't know with Nashville. They're kind of in a weird spot where they've got a lot of players, I think, locked up to, like, these long-term contracts, and there's clearly they're moving backwards, but I don't know where you go. I don't know if there's an easy way to kind of build your way out of that. right now. It might be, you might have to take the long road back. This might be the window a little bit closing, unless you can maybe do a retool on the fly or something, if that's possible for this group. But they might be in too much of a salary cap jam to get that done. I mean, you have Matt Duchene, who got scratched in what was it, their final, what was it, the like game 4, he got scratched, like an elimination game. Like, that's not going to be easy. Like, there's not an easy road ahead for the Predators. I honestly don't know what they can do. They might just have run into a situation where teams, where that core is a little bit too old to keep up now, is stale to keep up, and you might have and the younger teams are bypassing them. We'll see what they do. I think this could be a really interesting offseason in Nashville. If we're honest here, I think Nashville will be a team worth watching in this offseason, depending on how they decide to go and what direction they decide to go. From the Coyotes' standpoint, really good. They won a series, which I didn't expect them to. And that's awesome. Like, they really, like, that core, like, there were so many times this year for the Coyotes where it seemed like, oh God, they can't get anything going. Like, Taylor Hall doesn't look good. Phil Kessel doesn't look good. Nobody looks good on this team. They gelled at just the right time and in just the right way to win a series. Darcy Kemper was amazing. A guy who I've said a lot of times before is, a very underrated goaltender in this league and deserves more recognition than he's gotten. I think Kemper could carry them a little bit farther. I mean, I think they have, who is it? Who do they have in the next round? Colorado. That's going to be a tough one for them. I don't know if I don't love their odds against Colorado because the Avs are just that good, but I don't know. Kemper's been pretty darn good, and they seem to be clicking at a good time. I would love to see Arizona make a little bit of an extra push here. That would be fantastic for that team that's really suffered, and their fans after the whole John Chayka thing. Like, those fans could really use an extra pick-me-up, and I think as much as that series probably helped, it would be nice to go a little bit farther for them. Okay, finally, let's quickly give my predictions for the first official round of the playoffs before we go. Let's start in the East with the Flyers and the Canadiens. I mean, I don't know how you can go against the Flyers the way they've been playing. Yes, the Habs beat Pittsburgh, but I don't think you're gonna run into a situation here where the Flyers have been just decimating teams in their path. They're on such a clear mission path. They're so stacked with talent, and Carter Hart could very easily just walk in here and become the next Jordan Binnington and take a team put a team on his shoulders and take them to the promised land. I mean, a lot of people are picking Philly to be the cup champion, or to be a cup champion, or at the very least the Eastern finalist. And I would have to agree on that with the way they've been playing. I think they've got a great shot here. I'm going to say, I think the Canadiens, for their part, I think they're going to be able to put one win on the board, but I think this is the Flyers. This is a Flyers cruising victory. I'm going to say Flyers in 5 for that one. Tampa, Columbus, the chance to redeem themselves after the Jackets. The Jackets swept them last year when they were the President's Trophy winners. I don't know. That one's a tough one. I really could see that going either way. I think Tampa's been good in this tournament, has been good in the round robin. They've been all right. But Columbus is Columbus. I don't think I can really properly count them out with the way that they've played. I am going to say this case, I think Tampa's might be missing Victor Hedman and Nikita Kucherov. I think not Kucherov. Stamkos is out right now. Oof. I mean, that actually does change my thinking here a bit. I think I'm going to say Columbus. I'm going to say Columbus gets out of there. I'm going to say 6 games. I'm going to say it's 6 games for Columbus. Okay. I'm going to have to write these down actually, so I remember them, and actually when I'm actually filling out my my playoff bracket. I'm going to set up a bracket challenge league for people to play. if they're interested. So keep an eye out for that in the future here. Okay, Washington versus the Islanders. The Barry Trotz battle, the battle between his former team that he won a cup with and his new team. Did I said Columbus in 6? Yep, that's right. Okay. Barry Trotz, he really put this Islanders team is again, well-oiled machine. They really grind out wins and they get through. And they don't nothing fancy, nothing, they just go in, work hard and leave. They're a very blue collar team that way. They've got some great goaltending with Thomas Greiss and Semyon Varlamov, who have been just continuing to play really well. And then there's Ilya Sorokin, I think, is their third stringer, is supposed to be really good in his own right when he comes into the league. But I mean, I can't go against the Capitals in this series. The Capitals have flash and skill that I think will overpower the Islanders at the end of the day. I think this is just what I think again, this is a case of one of those teams where I think the Capitals are well built to beat a team like the Islanders in the way that they play. Plus the Capitals have been, they haven't been fantastic they weren't fantastic in the round robin, but I think that they have more pieces and more skill that the Islanders just aren't going to be able to handle. But I will say that's going to be I think that one's going to get dragged out though. I'll say that. I think we're going to have to go Washington in 7 on that one. I think it's the Caps in 7, another 7-game series for them. Finally, Boston, Carolina. Boston sucked during the round robin more than any other team. They were horrible. They won the President's Trophy and then came out and played terribly in everything since. It has not been good for them at all. Some of that is due to the fact that players missed early games due to, I think it was COVID concerns, or injuries or something. We don't know for sure, but they've been horrible. They've been very, very bad. Carolina just swept the Rangers and looked very good doing it. Of course, there is the whole thing that the Bruins, this is a rematch of last year's conference final where the Bruins swept the Canes. But Carolina's coming back a lot stronger than they were last spring. I think here's what I'm the way I see it. If Peter Mrazek is able to be as good as he is when he's, on, because Mrazek's a very streaky goalie. I think and James Reimer is back up as well, same thing. I think if they're able to play at the level that we know they're able to play and that we know they're capable of, if they play up to that level, I think the Canes are going to win. I think they will. And with Boston, obviously, what can you say about the Bruins? They're fantastic. Even then they're terrible. Even though they've been terrible, you cannot tell me that this is an easy, this is no cakewalk for either team. I mean, I'm going to stay with my dark horse and the team that I really, really love cheering for. By the way, the Hurricanes Twitter account, shout out them. They've been petty about the Rangers sweep this whole week, and it's been fantastic. I love the Hurricanes so much. If I were there are going to be so many people. If anyone is coming in that's new to hockey, I would be shocked if most of them weren't gravitating towards a team like the Hurricanes, because they're just so fun in every way. Their Twitter, the players, everything. So fun. Shout out the Hurricanes social media for being awesome. I think they're going to get through. And I think it's going to be 6 games. I think I'm going to go 6. I don't think that's going to be a 7-gamer. I think if it gets to 7, I think it's Boston. I think Boston, if it gets to a 7th game, the Bruins are going to take it. I think I'm going to go with the Hurricanes right now. I'm going to go with Carolina to win this. I think they've got this. Obviously I already said Vancouver in 6, sticking with that. What else now in the other 3 Western matchups? Vegas, Chicago. I think Vegas is a team very well equipped to handle the Blackhawks. I think, there's also the fact that, Robin Lehner, who the Hawks traded when they thought they were very clearly not going to make the playoffs when the world was normal back in February. Now Robin Lehner's a Knight, and he's done well, and he's a great goalie. So is, and they've won all 3 games in the round robin. Marc-Andre Fleury is fantastic as always. Although they do have the highest goals against. I mean, that's a team stat, but still. I think Chicago might put up a little bit of a fight here, but I think this is Vegas's series to lose, right? I don't think I'm crazy for suggesting that, right? Yeah, I'm going to say Knights in their 5 or 6. I'm going to say Knights in 5. I think it's Knights in 5. Colorado, Arizona. Oh boy. Well, Colorado is I would say the team I think most likely to go all the way from the West. And I think a lot of people are in that same boat. It's that Colorado-Philly matchup I think people keep really expecting to see here. And I don't see any reason why they would lose to Arizona. I mean, I think goaltending could maybe prove interesting. Philip Grubauer is very good, but I wouldn't be surprised if maybe Darcy Kemper stole a few here. At the end of the day, the Avalanche are just so much better in every single possible way to the Coyotes that I would be shocked if they lost. It would be the biggest upset of the first round if every single team. I won't go that far. That's going too far. I'll say that the Coyotes I don't think have a lot of a shot here. I think the Avs are built very well I think they're built too well and they're too powerful to beat for the Coyotes to have much of a shot here. I'm going to say they win a couple though. 5. I'm going to say they win 1. Coyotes win 1. And finally, Dallas, Calgary. That's a real toss. That's a real toss. If Dallas played terribly, Dallas played just as badly as the Blues. The Blues did. I don't. Frankly, the game today was 1-1 until a shootout. Like the Stars have been just as bad, and they're missing Ben Bishop and Tyler Seguin. This might be a Calgary upset here. We might be seeing Calgary in a place to win here, in a place of strength here, because they're pretty healthy. Cam Talbot's looked really good. It's amazing what Cam Talbot is capable of when, say, he's not playing 70 games a year like he was in Edmonton. When goalies aren't tired, they're good. They can be good sometimes. Who knew? I think this might be a Calgary series. This might be Calgary's to take. This might be a Calgary, if Seguin and Bishop aren't back, yeah, I got to go with Calgary. Here. And I'm going to go with, I'm going to say 7 because Dallas is still pretty tough. I think that one's going to be a very physical series. I mean, Corey Perry playing against Matthew Tkachuk for at least 4 games. Ooh, that's going to be fun. I'm going to say Calgary in 7 though for that one. And with that, I think this is an episode, guys. This took way too long to record because of all of the new tech I'm trying to put together here, or like all the trying the video stuff and everything. This episode took a little bit longer than I'd anticipated. Who knows if it even comes out tonight when you're listening to it. At the very least, it'll be out in the morning for you to listen to. Thank you for listening. Be sure to check out my Patreon if you want bonus episodes. Not sure if those will be on video, but at the very least, for less than what? A fancy cappuccino at Starbucks a month. Yeah, $3. $3 for $3 a month. You get bonus podcast episodes, and advanced looks at articles and other things that might be coming out related to the Lach in the Crease blog, lachinthecrease.com, and the CreaseCast YouTube channel and everything else. So yeah, go check that out if you enjoy my work and if you've been enjoying the articles I've been putting out this week and everything else. This week's been fun. I've been at home, back to work tomorrow. It looks like the Canucks schedule, which came out a couple minutes ago. If I remember correctly, there were no early games. Thank God. Let me double check here. No early games through the first 3. There's a 3:30 start on Friday, but that's still afternoon-ish. So I think we're good here. But yeah, thank you for listening. I don't know if we'll be back before or after game 1. We'll see. But yeah, thanks for enjoying the CreaseCast. Hope you like this new format. And hey, it's playoff time, baby. Let's get going. Here we go. Let's have some fun.